離れていった。
Back in the old days, capoeira, we used to go out to the streets to make money, to survive, right? And to make some food money, enough money for food, and you know, like you make that money and then you share it around everybody, and everybody get a little snack and get something to eat. But again, the times have changed now here. Now we do a demonstration just because we want to go out and we want to play capoeira. Even though capoeira is not MMA, right? Capoeira is a different art form, right? Capoeira has there's rituals, there's rules. MMA has different rules, right? And in capoeira you need to continue moving, you need to do ginga, you need to follow the ritual of the game. In a fight, there ain't no ritual. You're gonna punch each other in the face until somebody gets knocked out, right? And so that's the ritual of MMA, right? And it's hard to transition that, right? Somebody who's good at capoeira doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at MMA. They have a better chance of picking up quickly, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean. I've seen lots of good capoeira players just go into the ring and just not do a good job because they're not accustomed to transitioning, right? They might be really good at they're good at taking advantage. In capoeira, you find the opportunity. You slip, I take advantage of that. You trip, I take advantage of that. You fake a kick, and I can sweep you, right? It's more the taking advantage of being creative. And we bring, for people who are very expert at capoeira, they bring that creativity and they put it into their MMA game, right? So if I go in a fight, I'm not just gonna go and let's stand a guy, just boom, stand here. Oh yeah, I'm gonna punch out a pro boxer. Why? Why am I gonna go into his game, right? And so like, you know what? Let's see if he can go into my game. Let's see if how is he gonna handle me doing weird spinning kicks in his head? Yeah. Right? Is he gonna duck? Is he gonna come forward? What is he gonna do? And if usually I've been doing capoeira for a long time. If somebody tries to take me down, I can react to that, right? Yeah. Unlike most people. So it's just we throw a little bit unorthodox game. We throw things that they're not going to be used to, right? And our creativity of throwing our kicks in weird angles is our whole reason why we stick out in MMA. Right? A normal, typical fighter stand and stamp up, boom, normal kick, come back, leg kick. Right? They're not going to do weird spinning kicks, right? And also, not to mention that we can brawl and spin kick at the same time, catch you in a different angle. That's where I feel we have our advantage in MMA, is that we have that nobody else has. The edge we have, I mean, for somebody who's been doing capoeira since they're a little kid, is like any other kid. Right? If you have a 2.5-year-old kid starting to do MMA now, right, he's going to have an extreme advantage. Maybe not physically, because everybody, once they reach a peak in their lives, everybody physically becomes strong. But it's the reaction. The person who's been training longer is going to have a quicker reaction. Right? They're going to be able to react. Instead of reacting in a second, they're going to react in half a second, because they've been around it so often. They know how things go. Right? They know that a punch only reaches so far. They know how a kick reaches so far. They have a more open view, a more open mind about fighting or about capoeira, or about anything that pretty much they're doing. I'm also a father of a 2.5-year-old son. He's great. He comes to classes too. He comes to kids' classes, and you learn, capoeira. You learn all aspects, right? It's gonna, in the future, it benefits you, right? You're gonna learn to be rhythmic. You're gonna learn to be strong. You have to learn how to fight. You have to learn how to do the acrobatics. You have to learn how to dance. You have to learn how to play the drums and be rhythmic really well, right? So that stuff will, in the future, benefit, not only him but everybody else. He's going to be the third generation. Basically, I have my father, who basically pretty much started from scratch, started from nothing, right? From the ghettos of Brazil, from the slums, from like
favelas.
Yeah, from the favelas, having a tough time, even like finding food to eat, to now like bringing capoeira to Canada, making capoeira well known around the world, then becoming one of the largest organizations, and now I help lead that. And our organization keeps growing and growing in all aspects. As you can see, our MMA fighters are coming out, and they're representing it very well. Me, aside from a few other students of mine, are also in the movie scenes where we're doing stunts, we're doing flips, representing capoeira in other aspects also. Not to mention that we're also in theaters performing and do all the, so capoeira gives us a lot of aspects, a lot of roads that we can follow that can help us lead to a good path. Capoeira is also effective, and it is something that you guys are going to have to be paying attention to. Every martial arts has rules. Capoeira realistically doesn't have rules. I can poke you in the eye. You can tell, oh, it's wrong. But who are you to tell? Who am I to tell you what's right and what's wrong in capoeira? You might have been trained capoeira in another method, right? So realistically, we can't say anything. In capoeira, you're allowed headbutts in the face. You're allowed stomps. You're allowed smashes. You're allowed elbows in the face. You're allowed anything. It's vale tudo pretty much, but it's vale tudo under a ritual. You still need to ginga. You still need to move around, right? It's not like I'm saying you're gonna go and do handstands and stuff if you're fighting somebody in capoeira. But you're allowed to do anything. You're allowed to trick somebody. I can be like, oh no, I'm done. Shake your hand, and after, boom! Hot cabeçada, give you a headbutt, and you get knocked out. It's like, oh, but that's wrong. You shouldn't have done. It's too late now. You know, you got a headbutt in the face. These types of things that, that's some of the difference in capoeira. Most people create the illusion when they see it. It's like, no, it's just get hit and that's it. Usually that's more in a respectful manner. It's like, you know, it's very light sparring if you see something like that. I go and I kick you in the ribs, and then we laugh it off a little bit, and they're like, oh, I'm going to get you. And then I try to kick you again, you give me a sweep, and it's like, oh, now you humiliated me in front of everybody. It's a game. That's why in capoeira we call it a game. We don't call it a fight, right? Because we are playing a game of capoeira. In the game, a fight might happen. It's very hard to talk about capoeira and some of the history, because a lot of the history, we don't have most of the information. A lot of information was burnt by the Brazilian government when Brazil became independent, and so lots of information is gone. Lots of people say that capoeira came from Africa and it was brought to Brazil and later changed. Some people say it had influence of African and native influences, but it was developed in Brazil. From our group system, we believe that capoeira was developed in Brazil, but it has influence of natives and Africans, right? And so they say where slaves couldn't learn any type of martial arts, and so they had to hide it in the form of dance, right? And so the slaves would practice the art form. The very effective headbutts in the old days would be headbutts, jumping kicks, and they would practice that. Once slave owners got back, right, usually most of the time they'd be working in sugarcane fields, cutting sugarcane, and they would leave. They usually leave to check the other area of their fields and stuff like that, and so they would practice that, and then once they came back, they would disguise. What are you guys doing? I was going, oh, we're just dancing, we're just disguising like this, and slave owners would let that go because, you know, slaves were they suffered a lot, right? And so if they encountered something that made them a little bit happy, that they weren't going to complain or riot or fight about, and it's like, oh, I'll just let them go, let them do what, you know, what they want to do, even though they couldn't follow they couldn't follow their own religion, they couldn't speak their own language, but at least they're doing something active and it's making them happy, and so slave owners let that go. Little did they know that behind the scenes they're actually practicing as a way to defend themselves. You know what? There was a lot of fights before slavery was abolished, right? There was a quilombos, which were like forts, in which the slaves, 10,000 slaves, would go up to this fort, and they would create a fort, and they would fight for like almost 100 years, right? And these fights would happen not only in the forts, but around the city. Sometimes a slave would just be fed up from working so much and getting whipped and getting hurt that he would defend himself, right? And he would use some capoeira to properly defend himself, right? And so that's been going on for the past 400 years. And finally it got to a point in Brazil where there's too many slaves. You have to free everybody. You have no choice, or else it's going to be an uprising, and then the slaves are literally going to take over the country, right? And it's like, okay, we'll give you freedom, just don't go wild, right? And so that's the reason why it's still kept alive, right? And lots of people want to forget the past, but they don't. You know, you got to remember the past. The past is important, right? The slaves freed themselves. The slaves didn't get freed by a piece of paper. It was many years of blood that needed to be shed in order for freedom to happen in Brazil.